Hello booktube, hello book friends, welcome back to my channel and another video. Something a little bit different today, but something that is important in my view. My friend Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads recently posted a video called Authoritarian Awareness Number 1. It's a Good Life as a Parable of Totalitarianism. Greg is planning to produce a weekly series on a Thursday around the issues of authoritarianism and totalitarianism, fascism, and etc. And I thought I would support Greg with a short list of books that I've read recently or over recent years, which cover some of those issues. Some of them are older, dating back to the 1930s in some cases, and some are much more recent, published in the last few years. There are 4 authors I'm going to talk about and 6 books. I would recommend reading any or all of them. And you may well have some suggestions as well. And if you do, please feel free to leave them in the comments below the title of the book and the author. I'd be very interested to kind of broaden my horizons as much as you reading my suggestions. So I will talk first about a couple of books that were written by an author, a journalist, quite a fairly famous journalist called William L. Shirer. He was a journalist sort of through the 1920s, 30s, right up until sort of to the fall of the Berlin Wall, in fact. And he kept a diary when he was stationed in Berlin in the 1930s and saw the rise of the Nazi Party and Hitler. And that diary has been published pretty much since he had to leave Germany just before the start of the Second World War, because it was getting to the point where I think he was becoming unpopular in the eyes of the German authorities, and it was possible that he would likely be either incarcerated or worse as a result of reporting on what was happening. So his Berlin Diaries are very worth a read. They're split into 2 parts, but the one that deals with the kind of build up to the Second World War and sort of things like the invasion of Czechoslovakia, invasion of Poland, and so on, is the part 1, and is probably the most significant of the 2. The second part deals more with his return to Berlin at the end of the war and witnessing kind of the state that the country was in and having to rebuild itself. After the end of the war, Shirer also wrote something that is probably considered one of the foremost records of what happened with the Nazi Party, which is the rise and fall of the Third Reich. And this deals with not only the period where from Hitler as a young corporal in the First World War through to him becoming Chancellor of Germany, and the Holocaust and everything that happened up to the end of the war, and the kind of collapse of the Third Reich at the end of the war. And that also is worth a read. I will say both of these books are not easy reads. There is some quite horrible things happening that he is either reporting on or recording latterly. And I think a lot of those things are widely known, but perhaps some of the detail behind them isn't. To follow that, written more recently, but written about the same sort of time period, is Laurence Rees's The Nazis, A Warning from History. As I say, this catalogues the same time period, but it also looks at not just what the government was doing, but how it was enabled and emboldened to a certain degree by ordinary citizens who were, effectively going along with what the government was doing, and some of the things that were actually happening were just as much about what the ordinary citizen believed or was doing as it was about what the government was telling them to do. So also would recommend reading that at about the same time period. And then more recently still are 3 books that I would recommend. 2 by the writer and academic Tmothy Snyder. The first is on freedom, which was very much written around the time of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and I would recommend reading that. And then a further book called On Tyranny, which was written more recently and is a bit more of what I would perhaps call a primer of tyranny, authoritarianism, some of the things to look out for. It's written, I think it's over, is it 15 or 20 points that, kind of signal what this looks like in the modern world. And, I would recommend both of those books, but On Tyranny in particular. And then finally, Autocracy Inc. by Applebaum, written very recently again, and looking at not just what is happening in the United States, but also other places around the world, and how the rise of autocracy and authoritarian leaders is changing countries unrecognisably. So that's, as I say, 4 authors, 6 books. I would recommend all of them. And if you have any questions or you have any recommendations for me, as I say, please leave a comment down below. And I will speak to you again very soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.